And how did you guys get started playing competitions then, if it was just a members thing at that point?
Back then it was three teams, yeah. 3 teams, no bases, 4-2, like stun 2 seconds, dead 4 seconds, and 3 shots per second, right? So it was a very individualistic sport back then. So it was basically just the best of the best playing, and we would, like, the kids, our small group of people, and at some point they say, like, there's a tournament, you should join. There's people from other cities coming, and we said, all right, let's do this. And it was daytime back then, and I think it was 7 teams. 97, it was my first nationals, maybe 8, I don't really remember. And we played, and it was like, there was no structure to anything. You just put on your pack and you go in. There's no focal points, no bases, no nothing. You just run around shooting people. And that's basically all you did during that. We ended up second to last. We didn't come last. I'm happy about that.
You've got to start somewhere, don't you? As a tournament, as well as a team. Yeah, I think the early stories of the Australasian Championships was very similar. Yeah, bit of a Wild West situation. I had an old player tell me that one of the teams went in and unplugged the gun cable just a millimetre or 2 before the game. So when they went into the arena, the first shot that they all fired didn't register, and they had to push the gun cable in. they all shot them, and then went and parked in their base for the entire game and defended them. So they had to come, and they were winning by, like, 600 points or something, and they just defended their 600-point lead for the entire game. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's just hilarious. But hey, these are the stories that make it up, right? So it's something that in our previous conversation you mentioned was a real turning point was the White Fox visit to the US, and how much that changed the European kind of landscape. Just quickly, just run us through that, what happened there, and how that kind of evolved the scene in Europe.
So this was like 1999, I would say, something around there. And we have this player called White Fox, and he went to America. I'm not sure why. I don't know that part of the story, but he went there and he brought competitive, like what we know now as competitive laser tag, back home from the US. And he was from the other side of Sweden, the East Coast. And they started playing with rules. It was still a loose definition of rules back then. Like the rule book was fine, but they adapted and took some time, right? So they hosted a tournament in '99. It was called Neo, and that had like rules for covering and stuff, and bases and lore for the first time ever. You should see those clips from lore. It was awful. We had no idea what we were doing, but we played lore, and it sort of caught on. And I know one of their players moved down to the West Coast, started teaching us how to play, and it's always the notion that you can go abroad and play, and like this is how it's played in America. Back then, everything was like America. They do this in America, and we would do the same, more or less. So we started with rules, but it wasn't until, I would say, Nationals 2003, which was an awful tournament, but it was the first time that we actually had some sort of standard to the rules. We still have a long way to go in that department, but there was something, you know. So a lot of people would say the first like modern Swedish Nationals would be 2003, and it was just Swedes back then. In the upcoming Nationals, I remember 2004, we had Finnish people over in Gothenburg for the first time. I think that was back then. And I know Sulitol and Asma was there with their team. A strong team, actually. And from there, Finland was really involved for a very long time, because Sweden was like the center where the skill was the highest. And then after a while, it would move on. When GP was formed, it really moved to Finland, where the skill is the highest, I would say, in the world right now, at least on the top tier. Mid tier would probably be stronger in Australia, but the top tier would probably be the best at the moment
Yeah, I'd definitely validate that from my experience playing internationally and locally against them, and every other team in the world. GP are the number one team that I believe on the planet, and the biggest challenge in laser tag is going to Finland and trying to have a crack at that title.